We are we are live. All right. So, welcome again to Crystal Fridays. I'm going to set up my whole chat apparatus. Here we go. So, yeah, chat's open, just like always. Questions or comments, if you've got them, put them in the chat. And otherwise, feel free to put them on the YouTube video later. So again, if you're new here, this is Crystal Fridays. We do live coding for an hour on the Crystal programming language. So just briefly, if you're unfamiliar with Crystal, it is a new programming language that is looks a lot like Ruby. So if you're familiar with Ruby, you'll be pretty comfortable here. But the big difference here is that this is a compiled language and it has static typing. So what does that mean? So first of all, it's compiled into machine code. It's technically not machine code, but it's the same idea. And what that means is it runs a lot faster, basically, on your machine. And you don't need the Ruby interpreter to be around in order to run it. And then second, static typing. That means that your variables have a type assigned to them. So if you say like variable a equals 123, then variable a is an integer and it will always be an integer throughout the whole life of your program. And you won't be able to change it to a string value later on. And the compiler enforces that. So there's no way for you to get away with running a build and getting the compiled Crystal program if you do that. So it's a nice check for you. And you end up having to write a lot less tests as well, which is always nice because the compiler checks common stuff for you. So that's pretty cool. So anyway, with that, Crystal Fridays is where we do live coding for an hour. In the past, we've been doing a project called cprox. And cprox was us getting familiar with how to write HTTP servers, websites, with Crystal. And we used a specific library for that. And also, it used a backend database, a key value storage system. And we got used to basically writing the front end HTTP stuff, including HTML templates. And we merged that in and we connected it up with the backend database. And it's a pretty simple service. It's got like the backend database is just like on disk. It's some binary format that the project that we're using invented pretty much. And we're using that and we're basically treating it like a Crystal hash map. Or in Ruby, it would be the same thing, a hash map, so key value storage. And then the front end web server is kind of like Sinatra in Ruby or Flask in Python, if you're familiar with either of those. So, on the face of it, it was pretty simple. It is functional and it's pretty cool. We even wrote some tests for it. And it was sort of an exercise to get used to Crystal, used to writing a real Crystal application that you could theoretically put into production. So that was cool. So today we're going to take this code to sort of the next level, the next evolution, if you will. And we're going to do something that I have talked about with some of the maintainers on the Crystal forum. So you can always go to this too. This is forum.crystal-lang.org. And just search for hosted documentation or hosted documentation site or something along those lines. So we had this long chat all the way from April 3rd to when? April, whatever, 24 days ago. So that would have been like mid to late April. And it was a lot of back and forth. And it was pretty cool to talk to all these folks on the core team that I've never heard of. Obviously, because I'm new to Crystal. And basically, we talked about what it would look like to integrate documentation in a web service with the existing sort of dependency services like this one. So this one, like, let's click into Kamal that's the web server framework that I was using for cprox. And you've got all this information about Kamal. On the right, you've got who depends on Kamal. You've got what Kamal depends on. You've got how to put it in as a dependency in your project. It has like the README here for you. Lots of cool stuff here. There's like graphs and information on releases and latest activity. Like there's all this awesome stuff. But the one thing that's missing that I really miss from Go and from other languages too is documentation. And I'm talking about like documentation that's automatically generated from this crystal docs command. So you can go in here and run crystal docs. It's a standard command in the crystal toolchain, and it dumps all the documentation into a docs folder that's got all these HTML files and JavaScript files, and it looks nice. It just looks nice. I played around with it and looked at it. I just used a simple like Python HTTP server just before the stream actually, and it looks pretty good. But what I want to do today is I want to build a server. Well, let me talk about the end goal. The end goal is I want a server to consume some kind of a stream of crystal shards and versions. And then for each one of those it gets, I want it to run crystal docs on it. And I want it to take those all the documentation that gets generated, put it somewhere, and then when someone comes and says, hey, I want to go to this website, I want to get the crystal docs for cprox, I want it to take that HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and everything, and I want it to render it onto a website, onto a web page. That would be awesome. And the reason I want this is because I'm used to it from Go. So Go has Godoc, and Godoc has been around forever. I think Godoc was around since like before I started writing Go. So that would have been, I don't know, 6 years or 6.5 years or something. And now there's a new, well, let's look at this first. You can tell I'm really excited about this, right? So like this is what a Godoc looks like. So it's got like the package and a high level description of it, examples of how to use this thing, keep going down. It's got an index of all of the functions that you can call in this entire library. And then going down to the bottom, it has like subdirectories or subpackages of this cloud.google/go/firestore library, right? So pretty good. It's pretty complete. You can pretty much get used to a library if you're fairly familiar with Go using just this page. And then of course, if you want to, you can go all the way back up to the top and you can click here or there, and you end up going to the GitHub page where you can read the README and sort of look at the commit history and whatever else you want to do. So just comparing this up to, where was I? Nope. Let's just go back to Shardbox. And just compare. Here's one for this library. And we'll just go back to Kamal. And we can compare. The styling is different, but whatever. And we can go down and in here we can read the README and see the dependencies and blah, blah, blah. But we don't have this index down here. And in here, if the README had more examples, then it would be kind of as complete as this. And if the README had some more like official documentation, then it could be kind of as complete as this. Now, not all packages in Godoc are as complete as this, but you know, this is one of the many that has really, really good documentation. Like another one would be Buffalo, the Buffalo framework. Whoop. Let's go in here. That's the one. So same here. It's like lots of good description, and then since this is a higher level one, You kind of don't have a lot of examples, but you go down here and you can see it's a big library. And then, you can click in any of these and you can see how all of these functions work. And then down here, of course, there's a ton of subdirectories in Buffalo. Now, we are sort of like, we're talking about sort of a pie chart. Well, no, a Venn diagram. Let's call it that. Kamal has a bunch of stuff we want, but it doesn't have this auto-generated documentation. And this, obviously, has a lot of stuff we want, but it doesn't have the GitHub integration with the README and all the dependency analysis and stuff like that. And the activity, dependency graph. Like, this stuff is cool. So, last thing. There's a new documentation site for Go called pkg.dev.go. Now this is, you'll recognize, pretty much the same thing as Godoc, but just with different styling. We go to the overview. The overview now has the README, so that's cool. Now we're getting a little bit closer. We've got those sub packages, subdirectories in a different tab now. We've got the versions. Now this is similar to the versions in here, down here. It's very similar, so that's good. Imports, so this is what it depends on. So that is the same thing as this right here. Imported by is the same thing as this dependence, which is who imports Kamal. And then licenses, I don't think Kamal has licenses, but I'm going to consider that after all the other stuff is done. So now pkg.go.dev has the Go equivalent of everything that I would like with a documentation site. So Shardbox is almost everything but documentation. And in this thread on the Crystal forums, we were talking about how to integrate a docs server into Shardbox. So there's a lot of back and forth, of course, like I said, about how to do it and what exactly to do. And this was a cool discussion. But what we left it with is that there's an issue about how Crystal Docs works that we should figure out. And in the meantime, I'm going to build the very server that we're going to start building today. So this should be cool. And when I say I'm going to build it, I really mean I'm going to build it. There's not even a GitHub repository created for this yet. So let's do that. Here we are with cprox. We're going to be stealing a bunch of code from cprox. So I'm going to just keep that in mind. And we're going to do a new repository, and we'll just call this Crystal Docs. I'm really bad at naming, so that's what we're going to go with for now. I just got a tweet. Someone tweeted at me that said, when I just say crystal, people think I'm gonna get like addicted to drugs or something. So I'm calling it crystal language. And this also kind of reminds me of Go, because you can't really Google something and just say like, what's the best Go library? You're gonna get like stuff about the Go game, the board game, or you're gonna get something about like cars, or I think there's like a movie with Go in the name, or whatever. There's like a ton of different things you'll get. So you have to say Golang. So here, my version of Golang is crystal language for now, till I, or hopefully the community, comes up with, something better, I guess. Yeah, so README, GitHub doesn't have a crystal auto-generated git ignore, so I'm just going to fall back on what I know. We're going to do MIT. I always do MIT. We're going to create repository. All right, let's clone this down into WSL2. So I'm not using Visual Studio Code Spaces today, just because, I don't know. I guess old habits die hard. I'm used to WSL2 now. And that's funny because I think when I first started streaming, that was like my, I don't know, third or second week using WSL2. And before that, I had come from a Mac. So lots of big changes for me in the computing world lately. So anyway, we'll go back up to my source directory. We're going to clone it down. And here we go, Crystal Docs. So let's see, I have my cprox code base here, and I've got my Crystal Docs code base here. So I think the first thing we're going to do is crystal init. App. We want to create an app and name. Do it out. I think there's a different one to initialize an app in an existing directory. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Maybe not. Well, let's just do an init inside this directory and then figure out what happens. App Crystal Docs. And going back to here, we've got a Crystal Docs directory below. That's fine. I'm basically gonna just like copy the README out. And this is really, really sketch, I know. But that's just what we're gonna do for now till I figure out what the real command is. We're just gonna go with it so we can make some code progress. We don't need a license. It's the exact same thing as what we've got. I already moved the README out. I'm not going to use Travis CI. I'm going to end up using GitHub Actions. And that should be everything. So we're going to just VS Codify this, move it out. Oops, we're going to move all the rest of it out too. And we're going to replace that, and we're going to do a delete on Crystal Docs because that is already moved out. And then we've got a bunch of stuff. So let's just try running the thing. All right, it at least compiles, so that's cool. We're going to go back. We're going to check all this stuff in. And I actually recently got used to using the VS Code Git integration. So before on a Mac, I had been using the GitHub Desktop app, but this is a little bit more. Well, it's easier to do in in WSL2 using a VS Code WSL2 plugin down there. But it also is sort of, I don't know. It's nice to have the stuff right next to the code, and you can see like diffs that are in the sort of familiar panes of like, you know, the actual like work panes of VS Code. So I kind of like that. So check it in. Cool. At least commit for now. And this code will all be up on GitHub at that exact same repo, Crystal Docs. This is public, and I'll put a link to it also in the YouTube. So now let's go take some code out of cprox. So what is the first thing we're going to do? Well, it looks like we are going to have to take in some shards. So I definitely need a web server. Now there is a web framework called Lucky out there. I don't have a lot of experience with it. So I'm going to start with just using the Kamal framework that I already know. And then probably move to it because it's more like, you know, sort of Ruby on Rails, but for Crystal. So yeah, we're going to roll with Kamal for now. And then like maybe in a future stream, we'll move over. Not 100% sure what we're going to do about that yet. And then database wise, same deal. I know there are drivers for other like, you know, open source third-party databases, I guess, like MySQL and all that. The thing is that I am also not so familiar with them. So I'm going to just use the ones I got. Going to our shard file. Okay, cool. Put those dependencies in. And I think we need to run shards install. Let it do its thing. Cool. Going. Almost there. Yeah, sweet. All right. So we got our shards. What else are we going to do? We're going to take our main. This is our little convenience file. And if anyone knows a better way to do like crystal build, without having to say like src / whatever every time, it's a small thing. Maybe I should put it in a make file or something. But I would just be curious. So put it in the chat or put it on YouTube. Good morning. Thanks for showing up. So we're going to do our main. We're going to do that. We need to require source crystal docs now instead of cprocs. So we got that going on. And really, yeah, this is just so I can do like crystal build main.cr or crystal run main.cr. It's literally nothing else except for me being lazy. So like I can do this. Crystal build src crystal docs.cr, or exact same thing. I can do that. So it's literally less keystrokes. There's no difference that I know of, at least. So let's put it that way. So we got that going on. We're probably going to want to put in a git ignore. We're going to probably want to put the binary in git ignore. So crystal docs in the git ignore. I wonder if VS Code can even... No, I'm not even going to dare click that link to open it anyway. So here's what I know about this binary file as another aside. It's compiled with the LLVM compiler toolchain. So that's like a bunch of awesome utility libraries to help folks build compilers. So it's very meta. It's a compiler. I don't know if this is the right thing to say, but it's a compiler for compilers, maybe? I don't know. Just throwing it out there. Just think about it. If anyone is good at LLVM or knows pretty much anything about it, I certainly do not. So if you have a better description for what that is, I am all ears. So, alrighty. Now let's copy some of the meat of this thing over. We need to get some Kamal stuff and some Numite stuff. Numite is the database, by the way. So we'll copy that over. And this is programming. Copying code, right? We're going to go up here, put the requires in, and I saw something else we need to... Did I see something else we need to ignore? Maybe not. So we've got that going on for us. I'm gonna skip the exceptions. The database we need for sure. I think I already saw a version. Yeah, there it is. And let's just copy like one route for now. So that's just like the, plain old HTTP route. And if you saw me working on cprocs, exact same thing. So if I run crystal docs on like crystaldocs.dev or something like that, that would render this route. So no biggie. Obviously I'm going to have to fix this and figure out what to do here. But yeah, we're going to just start with this. It looks like that's everything for now. Yeah. So, okay. So we're going to have to figure out first of all, how do you get the actual package name out, or the shard name out of the URL? So that's going to be with a URL parameter, I think. And the thing is that if I do this, crystal shards have slashes in them. So like here, that's like a slash. I don't know how Kamal deals with slashes, because what if I did this? Like, is it gonna, let's say like shard org and shard name? I think then if you did like crystaldocs.dev / Kamal, what is it? / Kamal CR / Kamal, then Kamal CR would be that variable and Kamal would be that variable. So I guess maybe we'll go with that. I'm not 100% sure if all shards are this pattern, like thing slash other thing. But let's roll with it now, I guess. so, so yeah, okay, shard name and shard org. So also let's go back and figure out how do we get these parameters out of the URL. Looks like that. So I remember this. Yeah. So we look it up in the hash map. So we would do env.params.url and then like shard name. Then we put that question mark, which makes it either the shard name or nil. And then the compiler makes us check. So if you weren't here for the last few streams, you probably heard me raving about how the compiler makes you check, and I love that. So comments about the LLVM. Oh yeah, it could require multiple videos. I actually saw a series on YouTube that was like hours and hours and hours of videos, which of course I have not watched yet. Yeah, okay. Translates a front-end language to an IR, compiled to assembly. Oh, you create a front-end. Gotcha. Does LLVM do the back-end for you to compile your front-end code to like whatever architecture you want? Drop it in there if you know, because I don't know anything about LLVM, but I'll throw out a secret. I would love to actually dive into the Crystal codebase and like write some LLVM stuff. Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah. So eventually, I don't actually know if Crystal supports like ARM CPUs. It might if it's using LLVM. But yeah. Anyway, we're not going to dive into LLVM yet today. Maybe you'll see a stream in a while about me hacking on the Crystal compiler someday. So we've got our URL param stuff. So we're going to do our shard org equals env.params.url shard org question mark, and then we've got our shard name equals env.params.url shard name. So yeah, again, this is like this line here and this line here are straight up just copied out of this, including that question mark. And now let me do a little bit of ranting and raving. Shard org is either a string or a nil. And if we copy this down, this is the same deal. All right. So, you know, I'm going to keep harping on this every week because I love it so much. You can't use shard org or shard name as a string down below. It's just not possible. The compiler will yell at you and it won't compile your code. Now that's annoying on one hand, but it's actually really cool on the other hand because you don't get a nil pointer exception or a null pointer exception or whatever null thing is in your language, whatever you call it in your language. So we are going to do if shard org is nil, we are going to halt. So how did we halt last time? We just did that. Shard, let's do that. Shard organization is required. We'll just leave it at that. And we're going to do one of these. Oops, we don't want OBS. We'll do that. So if the shard name is nil, we're going to do another error, and then we're going to do our else. So inside of the else, now shard org and shard name are strings. Now the compiler guarantees that for us, which I think is really cool. And we'll do our end. And we're not going to do this stuff just yet. Actually, I'll comment that out. Why not? Okay. So we've got our shard org and our shard name now. Well, let's try to get that out of the database. So we're not going to deal with shard versions yet. Of course, eventually we're going to have to do that. And And I suspect we're going to need to come up with a better database for this. But for now, we are just going to do the shard org and the shard name, no versioning. Okay. So let's put together the database key. That's going to be the shard org / the shard name. Okay, so I have Butterfingers today. So the database key inside of this DB is basically going to be the same thing as like this or this. Okay, so we are going to go ahead now and do a shard docs. I don't know what's going to be in the value of this database yet, but we're just going to keep it at that. So database DB key, and then same deal. Shard docs as either a string or nil. So if shard docs is nil, no documentation available for shard org shard name. Why is that? Oh, we've got to do a hash. There we go. Good old VS Code highlighting saved me from compiler errors again. Okay, so shard docs now will not be nil. And let's see. If there is no documentation, this is where we're going to actually need to have to get the documentation, I guess, and like run Crystal docs on it. So I have no idea how we're going to get it besides like Git. We might have to do Git. I'm not really sure. But once we do, then we're obviously going to have to like go into that directory, into the new GitHub directory. Sorry, the new Git directory. And then we're going to have to go and run Crystal docs. And then we're going to have to go and copy all of the Crystal docs into the database somehow. So that next time when we do one of these, it's not going to be nil and we'll go into the else. So to do fetch and render the docs. So we're going to do first fetch the source code using git clone maybe. Step 2, cd into the new source code directory. 3, what did we say? 3? Oh yeah, run Crystal docs. And I'm going to reference back to the forum post because there's a big discussion on how to run Crystal docs. See that for more detail. And then 4, somehow copy the docs into the database. That's a big, this is a big one. This is like when we do, you know, step 3 is question mark, and then step 4 is question mark, and then step 5 is like profit. I even spelled profit wrong. So yeah, it's like we have no idea. This is probably the biggest one. How do we actually copy docs into the database? Are we gonna like make a tarball of them or like a zip file or something? Yep, profit. That's right. You got a profit. And hello, thanks for showing up. Thanks for coming. Or I should say hello into the camera and not the chat machine. So yeah, I don't know how we're going to profit yet, but believe me, we're going to profit. I can't promise that. I'm not quite at the definitely going to profit from Crystal language yet. But we're getting there. I think we're getting there. I hope we're getting there. So yeah, all right. So shard docs are now a thing here. They are not nil. And we're going to do something with them. So this is where we're going to have to figure out how do we, like not how do we put them in the database, but what format are they going to be in when they're in the database so that when they come back out, we can somehow take them from whatever format they were in the database and put them into like HTML and CSS and all that stuff so that we can render them from our server down to the client, down to the browser or whatever. Okay. So here's my first guess on how we're going to do this. I think we should just go with the old tried and true tar, like Unix tar, not like tar that you see on the pavement. So let's just go try it. Let's go into the Crystal API docs, which if you hear last time, you probably saw me struggling to find this link like for 5 minutes. I have since bookmarked the link, which is nice for the stream because we don't have to wait 5 minutes to get to a page. And I pulled it up already. So let's do tar. I wonder if they have tar. There's some LLVM goodies. So eric.dev, if you're into some LLVM hacking on Crystal, that might be a good place to check out. And report back. Tell me what you find. Let's search for compression. Zip. Okay. Does it actually do zipping? File. Provides random read access. Okay. Nice. Right here. So that is what I expect from Crystal. Simple. Nice and simple. I like that. But it looks like it's asking us to open an actual file. I wonder if we can have it open memory. Yeah. We can give it an IO. That's nice. So if IO is like a file looking thing. So in Python, you might be familiar with file pointers, often called FP in Python. And those, like, you can pass a actual file object or a bytes IO, which is just bytes in memory that looks like a file object, or string IO, which is the same thing but for a string. And in Go, we have IO as well, IO reader and IO writer. And in fact, when I just saw reader and writer, that's exactly what came into my mind, is IO reader and IO writer. So my guess is that file is the place to go for us, just because reader sounds lower level, but we're going to do a little bit of digging. So we've got a nice example here. That is cool. But it looks like we've got to iterate through all the entries here, and maybe there's a way to like render them that way. Or we might have to use a different database for this. I'm not really sure. But maybe there's somehow a way to say in the database, instead of just bundling everything up under the shard key, maybe we'll have each shard key be like the shard org, shard name, / something in the file. I mean, something in the documentation for that shard. And then maybe we don't have to worry about zip files. Because this is making me think, like, if we pull an entire zip file out of the database, then what? Like, do we have to write them to disk so that later on we can serve them via HTTP? And if so, that would mean like we end up basically just having a bunch of docs on disk, which I think that'd be pretty easy to do. And I'm going big. Go big or go home. So I'm going to try to integrate the database now before we move on, instead of just building a little file server in Crystal. So let's go figure out what we're going to do with the database. We've got the database key. Okay. And let's think here. So if the browser goes to get shard org, shard name, so we're going to go like shard docs, or let's call it crystal docs.dev. And then they do, let's just take whatever fake shard name. And we want index.html. Now, what should the database be? It could be like db /my shard index.html maybe. Or maybe we need to do a version in here. Something like that. But let's not worry about versions yet. We'll get there later. So this is looking decent. instead of zip files. Zip files sounded like more work for no payoff. So yeah. And by the way, if anyone watching this wants to go get crystaldocs.dev, you might want to wait, because I actually might launch this thing on crystaldocs.dev. Just saying, if you do go get it, I'm not going to be super mad. But yeah. So yeah, let's roll with this. So if someone goes to crystaldocs.dev/shardorg/shard name, they're probably not going to pass index.html. So basically here, we are going to append index.html here onto the database key. Yeah. Okay. So now we've got our database key. If shard docs is nil, blah, 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 we do all of our checks. And if the index.html was available, we're just going to serve it straight up. Now I need to look up in Kamal again how to return a MIME type, which would be text/HTML. So text HTML, and then the index. What did we call it? Shard docs. So we're gonna go over to Kamal docs. Okay. Oh, they have a little marketing thing. Oh, very nice. I like that. We're gonna see MIME. Did they have a guide? Yeah, a guide. Send file. We don't want to really send file. Is that all they got? Well, I guess so. Maybe it returns HTML by default. Static headers. Okay, layouts we're not going to deal with yet. Content 4, okay. So this might be useful later if we want to wrap our templates with some like specific, if we want to wrap our documentation with some specific styling for like our particular server. So I'm just going to file that in the back of my head for now. And it looks like there is, at least in the guide, there's no specific way to return a HTML MIME type. However, at this point, I would usually go and read the Kamal source code to see if there is a way. Or, even better, clone it down to my machine and then run Crystal Docs on it to figure it out. But it's kind of funny because that's exactly what we're doing with our server. And the goal with the server, this is like inception to me. The goal with the server is to make it so in the future I can go to some documentation site and then do /whatever documentation site.com/Kamal and then see the actual API docs right there, the Crystal generated API docs. So we're going to feel the pain here. I'm actually going to first just start by returning, is this the one? Yes. I'm going to first just start by returning shard docs and see what happens. And then going from there, then we'll figure out, we'll probably have to read some Kamal code and we'll figure out, like, is there a better way to do this? All right. So we got that going on. Let's start up the server and just see if like stuff works. Crystal run main. No undefined local variable or method. I always do this. Always. This is the callback, like all the way down to this end here. And the callback in the Crystal macro, and by the way, this right here is a macro. So it gets exploded into actual Crystal code that gets compiled before the compile actually finishes. But the macro allows me to pass Crystal code, and it looks like a callback, and it allows me to pass it with no parameters. So in that case, the macro will pass nothing to my callback, but I need this magic env parameter. So we do this. And I think that's the proper syntax. Let me just go double check that. Yeah. So yeah, syntax of taking a parameter to the callback is just pipe and then the parameter name and then close pipe. Now I'm pretty sure that you can either do 0 or 1 parameter to your callback. You might be able to do 2, but again, I'm not quite sure unless I run Crystal Docs, which is kind of funny. Inception again. So let's try it now. Crystal run, please, please. Oh, we forgot to kamal.serve. That's important. You actually have to start up the server. It's actually kamal.run. Okay. So we'll go back here and we put it down at the bottom. Now it's doing something. Localhost 3000. And oh, Kamal doesn't know this way, and that is because we don't have a path for the home page. We don't have a path that is just slash. Oh, yeah. Well, I think there's probably more than one domain addict in here. So, yeah. If I would probably expect like 5 or 6 Crystal Docs related domains to be bought by this point. So don't let me down, audience. Let's see what you got. Yeah, all right. So there's no slash, so we're going to just do /my shard. And obviously, we have no docs in our database for this module. Or any, sorry, I shouldn't say module. That's habit from the Go days. There is no documentation for any shard at all, right? Because we don't have that part of the if. We don't have this big old to-do. Whoops. And it sounds like we're going to need to do the to-do. So let's do that. Now, I showed you before that when we run Crystal Docs, it dumps it out into this docs folder. Right? Can I highlight? Yeah, there we go. It dumps it out into there. So docs. And if we check out what's in here, it is not just an index.html file. I had kind of alluded to this before, but now we're actually seeing where the problem could lie because we've got a bunch of stuff in here, not just index.html. And in here, we're pretty much only dealing with index.html. So, choice time. We can either deal with that now or file it away and just deal with index.html. So I'm going with the second one. Why? Because I only have about 13 minutes left and this is way easier and maybe we can get something working today. That would be cool. No, we'll see. So, did I pull up documentation on how to run commands? Yeah. All right, so this is like the first most rough estimate on how we might be able to do this. I'm literally going to do a git clone, and I'm going to do a git clone on, like in this case here, I'm going to just do git clone github.com/this/this.git. That's it. So like, I'm pretty sure that some shards might be on other VCS hosting systems than GitHub. For now, like I'm just going to do 80-20 and I'm just going to say GitHub is the thing. We're going to use GitHub for now. We'll figure out better places to download from or a better way to figure out where to download the shards from later. So we are going to go in here and we're going to say shard VCS URL, and that's going to be github.com/shard.org/shardname.git. So by the way, for anyone who's unfamiliar, this is the way you do format strings in Crystal. So if you're from the JavaScript world, this might be a little familiar because in JavaScript, really the only difference is you do a $sign in front of the variable or in front of the squigglies and then the variable name. In Crystal, you do this. I actually typo this. I do a typo all the time for this. I'm like this, or I do that, and then I do like a dot format at the end of the string because that's the Python way to do things. But Crystal, it's hash and squiggly, just like Ruby. And you don't have to put any special quotes in front of the thing. Like JavaScript, you've got to put a backtick, but Crystal allows backticks, but you don't have to put a backtick. And my muscle memory is for quotes, for double quotes, because that's Go. That's how I do it in Go. So we've got a VCS URL. Cool, cool, cool. And we've got 11 minutes to git clone this URL. Let's do it. Documentation. There we go. Commands. So you can do a backtick. This is where backticks are necessary. You can do a backtick, and that will do the command right away. So you can see, like, you can do %x literals, and those substitute input, those substitute variables into your backtick command. That sounds super dangerous, because if you took that thing, if you took that variable and put it in a command, you're taking user provided data and running it on your system. So, you know, someone can pass in like print the password, and it'll get printed without your knowledge to your logs. So we're not going to do that. We probably could get away with it, but we're not going to do that. So let's do this thing with process.new. So we're probably going to do process.new and then git clone blah, 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 blah. So let's do that. I think we're going to have to look up the docs for process. Process. Okay. I'm looking for that .new function. I'm sorry, I'm not looking for that .new function. .new is just the create new command, and that would be here. So creates a process, executes it, but doesn't wait for it to complete. Okay. I'm going to see if we can tell, yeah, chdir. So I'm going to chdir into a really specific, probably like a temporary directory. I'm going to git clone the stuff into there. I'm going to git clone the repo into there. I'm going to crystal docs. I'm going to run a second command called crystal docs in that directory. Then I'm going to go into the docs directory under my directory that I created with this new command. I'm going to copy the index.html from there, put it into the right key in my database, and then I'm going to go up, all the way up to the directory that this thing created, and I'm going to delete it all. All right. So let's start by doing our process.new, and that was here. Oh, and I think I have to require the process shard, standard library shard. And we'll go down here and we will do, we're not yet to profit. So B. Kettleson, show up next time, and we'll probably get to profiting by then, I hope. So we're going to do clone process equals that. And let's do a git and clone. And we're going to do our shard VCS URL as the second parameter to that. And then we're going to provide the directory. So let's call the directory, something unique. And obviously I think the easiest unique thing would just be this. So this is not the directory we're going to run the process in, by the way. This is the, not the directory we're going to run the process in. This is the directory that we're going to check out the code into. So we're going to do that, and we got to do this. And so we're not going to get to the chdir part yet. But basically the chdir thing is going to be like a staging location. And that's going to be where we check out all of our code to, and we can always blow it away. We can always delete it and get rid of everything in that directory. And that would be good to like clean up the server if it's running out of disk space or something along those lines. Okay. So we've got our clone process, and we are going to go look at the process docs because I know we can do get s to end. Oh, actually, this looks like what we want. We want to wait till it's done before we move on. So like by the time we get to the next thing down here, or profiting, we want to make sure that the thing finishes, and we want to make sure it finished successfully. So we're going to do if clone process, and then I think I copy it. Nope. That. And we're going to do if not. We're going to do if not clone process wait success. Then we're going to do what was it? I think there's an env.halt maybe. Come on. That lets us bail out. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to have to do a 500 error here. Status code 500. I'm just going to say that. A really terse and unhelpful error message. But we'll make that better later. Okay, so we've got the thing now. And here is where we're going to have to basically cd into the directory, into this directory that we specified. And we'll do the chdir, chdir. We'll do that by using the chdir parameter. And then once we cd into that directory, then we can do crystal docs. And that, like I was saying, that's going to create another nested directory below the one we just ran chdir into. Chdir, I don't know how to say that. Chdir, if anyone knows how to say that, put it in the chat. So we're going to do docs process equals process.new. And we're going to do our crystal docs. And then we're going to put, I think that's all we need to run, actually. I'm just going to look at the help text here. Crystal docs directory. And we had a discussion about what format to output it in as well on that Crystal forum. And I'm going to just do HTML for now. But there was an idea that I think is a really good one to output it in JSON and then use that JSON later to like serve a JSON API and also render our own custom HTML from the JSON instead of just like rendering the HTML that Crystal Docs decides to spit out. So that might be useful. But for now, 4 minutes left. We're going to take the easy way. Definitely the easy way. So yeah, Crystal Docs will output a docs directory underneath the current directory, and I need to chdir into the current directory. And for that, I think we do this. Yeah, we do chdir equals, and then our shard org shard name. Okay, so then same deal. We're going to do this docs process. Couldn't generate docs. Alrighty. So at this point, we have fetched the source code. Can I do an emoji? Yeah, check mark. We have cd'd into the new source code directory. We have run Crystal Docs. Excuse me. We have not question marked yet. We have not profited yet. Also, I'm going to put it to do here. Figure out how to get the rest of the Crystal Docs files into the database. That's going to be a big one. We're going to do that next time. But I'm super happy actually with how far we got. This is kind of a testament to like me, a brand new Crystal programmer, being able to pick up this really awesome, powerful language and go build something decent. That's a testament to how easy this language is to learn. but at the same time, how powerful it is. So it's a small community right now. It's an up and coming language, but I actually think this has like a really big potential to succeed because the power and the simplicity, the power taken from LLVM and all the compiled language and static typing, and the simplicity of Ruby are like connected now. They're combined into one thing. And the tooling is pretty good as well. Like I don't have to pick up 5 different tools. I really just need to know about the Crystal tool. And that was something that really succeeded in Go. I really think it's going to succeed here as well. So with my sales pitch on Crystal behind me, I want to say goodbye for today. And this will be up at ar//Crystal Docs. I'll put that link into the YouTube. And I'll also put the link into, I'll put the link to the cprocs. Where is that one? Well, it was up here before, but I'll put the link into cprocs, which was where a lot of this code came from, into the YouTube. And the last thing is, if you need to know where the YouTube is, go to ar//about, scroll down, and there's a link under Crystal Fridays to the actual YouTube. All right. So I hope everyone stays safe, stays healthy, has a great weekend, and I will see you here next week at the same time at the same place. So that's 10 a.m. U.S. Pacific time in the exact same place you are right now. All right, all. Take care.